Okay, I know people are going to trickle in and watch the recording and all that, but we will get started. I'm going to just bring down my screen and give me one moment to get organized here. Welcome, everyone. Okay. So, welcome everyone to today's monthly Feed Your Mind series. We do one every single month on different topics from wonderful experts in the community. I am Wendy Singer, Executive Director of No Shame on You. And on behalf of our Board of Directors, staff, and volunteers, I warmly welcome you to today's program. No Shame on You has revisioned, and we are dedicated to reshaping attitudes about mental health, elevating conversations, and disarming stigma. We support young people as well as those who support them with tools to understand, talk about, and respond to mental health challenges. If you're new to us, we fulfill our mission with comprehensive outreach programs, workshops, teen programs, free resources. We have a great free resource library online and a robust online presence with over 120,000 social media followers, mostly on Facebook, but we're also on LinkedIn and Instagram. And we partner with awesome organizations and professionals all across the Chicagoland area where we're located, but also across the country. And we are recognized for our inclusive, consistent, responsive programming for people of all backgrounds. I want to express the gratitude to our sponsors displayed on the pre-roll slideshow. And before I introduce our speaker, we will hold a Q&A at the conclusion of the program. However, Meg, our wonderful speaker, is totally open to people submitting questions and at any time during the program. You can submit your questions directly to me, Wendy Singer, NSOU, and I'll address as many questions as time permits. It's now my pleasure to introduce one of our best speakers. She did a program with us last year and is just a wonderful human, Meg Bowman. Meg is a licensed nutritionist and educator specializing in the powerful intersection of mental health and nutrition. She's co-founder of several organizations that reflect her commitment to functional, compassionate, and evidence-based care, including Nutrition Hive, a functional nutrition group practice supporting clients navigating mental health, hormone, and gastrointestinal conditions, and Clinicians Incubator, where she mentors postgraduate nutrition professionals pursuing the certification nutrition specialist credential. She also serves on the faculty of Nested Health Coach Nutrition, an NBHWC approved program that equips providers with trauma-informed coaching skills. Meg is also an author. This is really, really cool. And she's about to release a book that really is the focus of our topic today. And that's This Is Your Body on Trauma: How to Nourish Safety, Resilience, and Connection with a Polyvagal-Informed Nutrition, which explores how nutrition can be used as a tool for trauma recovery and nervous system regulation. And we love this at No Shame on You because mind and body is connected, and we know that. So you can learn more about her work at megbowmannutrition.com, and I'll put that in the chat. So welcome everyone, and take it away, Meg.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk about one of my favorite topics. I'm going to see if I can get my slides to work. I apologize, Wendy. I have a lot of really weird words in my bio. Like it's a lot.
It's great. It's a
I
good
wear a lot
talent.
of hats and I enjoy all of them. Okay, so let's dive into this. So first off, I feel a little bit like I want to give just a very brief disclaimer, which is I think sometimes when we, conceptualize what a talk on nutrition is going to be, we really think it's going to be about what to eat. And I have endless conversations with my interns about how that absolutely matters. For sure, of course it does. And the how I would argue, especially as it relates to trauma, matters more. So we're going to spend like 7/8 of this presentation on how. And then at the very end, I'm going to give you a little bit of what. And hopefully that will kind of conceptually tie it together for you. But I promise not to give you everybody should be eating X servings of anything. We're not going to do that today. So first off, for those that are familiar or not with polyvagal theory, I always like to give just a little explainer. So polyvagal theory is a way to describe our nervous system's responses to danger and safety. It was conceptualized and described by scientist Stephen Porges many, many years ago. And we continue to add our understanding of really how danger signals and safety signals affect us. So I want to go to a really maybe obvious, maybe not, probably very obvious. If you have ever had a child, been with a child who says, I have a tummy ache. They don't want to eat because they got a tummy ache. But you're like, hey, they got a test today. That is a great example of polyvagal theory in action, where the nervous system, that perception of danger, especially before we can say, hey, I'm really worried about this test, that perception of danger is showing up somatically. And so that's a great example of this. And so our nervous system state dictates so much, influences so much about food and about nutrition. And so we're going to dive into that a little bit more today. And thank you, Wendy, for mentioning. I will also mention if you have any questions, please just ask right in the moment. I mean, this is a little bit of a complex topic. And I think if you have a question, I want to address it right in the moment. So feel free. Okay. So let's start with the understanding of the autonomic nervous system prior to polyvagal theory. So you, I am sure, have heard people say fight or flight, rest or digest. Sometimes we have more fun words than those, but fight or flight, rest and digest, those are pretty normal words. The concept here is that our nervous system is like a light switch. Either we are in fight or flight, or we are in rest and digest. And our understanding of that is not nearly nuanced enough in the old model. So let me walk you through what this might look like when we're speaking about nutrition as relates to mental health. So if this model is true, and somebody is experiencing anxiety, I'm just going to give a simple example that happened the other day here. Whoopsie. Somebody was experiencing anxiety because they had too much caffeine. My bad. It was an early morning and the coffee was necessary. We would say something like, can't you just not drink that much caffeine, right? You're either on or off. Can't you just relax? Can't you just not feel that? It's either on or off. So it's an old way of kind of conceptualizing how we perceive stress and safety. Polyvagal has a different way that I'm so appreciative of. Instead of a light switch where it's on or off, I want you to think of a dimmer switch, or maybe even, I kind of like the idea of the dial on a gas stove, where instead of all or nothing, you have all of these possible responses that could come out of a given situation or a given thought. So some of those responses, the way that Stephen Porges has named these, are a little complicated and they're not words that we use in regular speech very often. So when there is too much energy, let's go to the left side. When there's too much energy and we really have that burner all the way to the top, that is what Dr. Porges calls sympathetic. I always say sympathetic activation because I think that helps us understand the word better. But you could also just say too much energy. Um, I just take like a second to think of the last time that you had too much energy in your nervous system. I got honked at the other day. I'm really disclosing a lot of my boo-boos here. I got honked at the other day because I pulled out and I went left and I didn't see this person coming on the street and I got honked at. And in that moment, my nervous system is like, poof. And so I had too much energy in my nervous system. I actually, right now, you all are observing me, have quite a lot of energy in my nervous system. How would you know that? It's because I'm talking with my hands, my cheeks are red. It's still play for me. I'm not in fight or flight. Y'all aren't freaking me out, but I definitely have more energy in my system. Okay. Let's keep moving. So on the other side of this, where we move toward more parasympathetic, this is the traditional kind of rest and digest, we actually have two responses that we can have. The first one, I'm going to go all the way to the right, is called ventral vagal, which is safety or regulation. By safety, I mean a felt sense of safety, groundedness. I don't necessarily mean calm. You could be calm while experiencing ventral vagal, but you could also be sad and feel safe. You could also be angry and feel safe. It's the felt sense of safety that really dictates ventral. My perception of the world right now is that not a lot of people are having a lot of time in ventral. Like we seem to have a lot of people that have a lot of energy, or they might have way too little energy and they don't kind of have that sweet spot of safety. So when we have too little energy, that's called dorsal vagal. And I always say dorsal shutdown. You could also say numb. You could say dissociated. It's that real kind of shut down. I don't want to do anything. I got a flavor of this yesterday. It was raining where I live. And there's something about the rain that just really pulls down my nervous system energy. And I just want to get in bed with a blanket and like watch some movie that I haven't watched, Anne of Green Gables, the 1984 version, uh, in decades. But there's something about that just feels really like I just want to shut down. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to do anything. I just want to like, "Grr." So as you can see, what we have is a really wide expression of how our nervous system might show up. So how does this impact food? I know you all are wondering. You're like, where the heck are you going with this? So let's talk about it. Just actually, before I talk about it, I'm going to give you a very short story and I'm going to walk you through how these states are related to each other. And then we'll talk about what they mean with food. So in my early 20s, I was in a tornado. I wasn't in the tornado. I was experiencing a tornado. It was summer of 19, and we were at my college, and I was a camp counselor for some middle schoolers that were coming to the college for music camp. And our tornado came through. It was a huge storm. You can still read about it. Like you can actually read about the devastation in northeastern Iowa. You can find evidence to this day. I didn't imagine it. And a tornado came through, and I was not even remotely panicked about this tornado because in my college, there were two buildings that were connected by an underground tunnel. We were like 20 feet underground. I had no worries about this gosh darn tornado. We were just like all sitting there in the big tunnel, having a lovely time with the kids, happy, happy. all of a sudden this kid shows up, and this camper, when the tornado sirens first went, he started having an asthma attack, and then unbeknownst to any of us, he ran back to his dorm to get his inhaler and then ran back to the underground pathway before he used it, because logic was not happening. Prefrontal cortex was not fully activated at that point. And so by the time he got back to us, as you can imagine, he was in some trouble. And so before the tornado, and even early in the tornado experience, I was very ventrally regulated. I felt safe, We did that thing that we all do. You look and see if anybody else is worried. Nobody else is worried. No problem. We're good. I'm alert a little bit, but like this is not a problem. And then the kiddo comes back. He's in trouble. I had asthma as a kid. I was the only camp counselor that had experience. And so I got voluntold that I was going to be the one to help him, to drive with him in the ambulance, because we had to call an ambulance, to the ER and manage him that night. And I definitely remember like my hands got clammy, my heart started racing. I started having this like lump in my throat. Very much too much energy. I do not remember anything from getting in the ambulance through calling his parents 3 hours later. So I completely went into too much energy, and then I couldn't get out of it. Like it was just too much, and my nervous system shut down and I dissociated, and I remember nothing until later. And this is what happens. This is the way that these are related. So our nervous system first will try and see, hey, if we just give you a little bit more energy, will that solve the problem? If that doesn't solve the problem, we will go into shutdown. And this isn't something that we decide. This is completely unconscious. Animals do this. You can actually like watch animals do this. I wouldn't recommend it because it's usually one animal stalking another animal. I wouldn't recommend it. But this is something that just happens in our nervous system on a completely unconscious basis. Okay. All of us have one of these, either dorsal or sympathetic. We have a home away from home. We have a nervous system state that when stuff gets a little bit scary, that we spend more time in. I am definitely a sympathetic activation type. I'm the one that's like, we're going to fix it. We're going to do the thing. I can see the problem. We're going to research it. We got this. Like, let's go. My husband is like, let me go down into my man cave and huddle, So we all have a home away from home. And I really want you to like think about that and put that in the back of your head, because we're going to talk through these states a little bit more and see if you identify with any of them. But to help get us there, something that I do with clients when I'm trying to explain this, I pull out my list of highly divisive foods. Because I promise you that probably by now, if you're reading this list, there is something on it that is going to strike a reaction in your nervous system. Like whether it's anchovies or black licorice, that one gets me. I really like Brussels sprouts. I like cilantro. You, Wendy? Black licorice? Yeah, there's a lot on here.
It's funny because I like everything except black licorice. That's
Except,
my
yeah,
thing. That's
fair.
my, and it's on this list.
Yeah. If anybody actually has other things I should put on the list, I feel like I'm constantly curating this list because it amuses me. But I want you to think about like if there's something that you identified on here that felt objectionable, I'm going to ask that you just feel what that feels like in your nervous system. So I'm specifically not asking you to feel what that feels like in your body. Sometimes, I work with a lot of people with and teens with eating disorders and um, other mental health conditions too, but often asking somebody to identify where that feeling is in your body can be really challenging. That's a really challenging thing to ask. So I'm going to ask you to feel it in your nervous system, meaning, do you feel like when you look at eggplant, was there an increase of energy in your system? Was there a decrease of energy in your system? Did anybody look at one of these things and love it and be like, oh, that food feels so safe? I mean, olives for me. Hello, let's do that. That feels super safe. So think about that. Anybody have a reaction that they want to put in the chat, like one food that really sent you? Be kind of curious. And then what was the reaction? Was it like too much energy, too little energy, safety? Okay, fair enough. We will move on. Let's keep talking about it. So let's talk about what safety feels like and why we care. So safety, ventral vagal, the chief characteristics about that are safety, but it's also connection. It is in ventral vagal that we can connect with others. Um, it is also the place in which we have the most capacity for choice. If you ever think about, like, this is a great example. If you ever think about, like, everybody in your household is sick at the same time, you all are feeling absolutely miserable. You are going to do whatever you got to do food wise to get through the week. Of course you are. You don't have capacity. I had a client this week that's experiencing so much stress that they are having so much decision fatigue, like so much decision fatigue. They can't make decisions about food. When we are experiencing ventral, we can make intentional food choices. And that means we can choose, like I did. I knew I was coming on here today, so I was really intentional about my lunch. Like, I didn't eat beans. You're welcome. I ate like something that I knew would be super balanced so that I would be able to sustain my energy through this talk. So I had some arugula, which is like my delight food. I had a sandwich. I had water, but not sparkling water because I didn't want to have to burp. So like I had a lot of capacity for choice. Now, had this day gone differently, had this day gone like yesterday, where I had a kiddo who forgot to get his gym clothes in the dryer. And so they were in the washer, completely sopping wet. I'm looking at my schedule. I'm like, how the frick am I going to get this to school? My husband ended up taking it to school. But it was like one heck of a day where when noon came, I was just like, what could I possibly eat? And I ended up eating some of the tortilla chips that happened to be landing on my desk because that's the only thing I had access to. So ventral gives us choice. The choice can also be I want to eat this fun food. I want to eat this sweet treat. That is also a choice that you can make in ventral. It isn't about let me eat perfectly, but it is about the choice. In ventral, our digestion works optimally. It is so common that people under stress get all sorts of GI issues. Definitely it can run toward constipation, but in our practice, we often see what we call disaster pants, which is our word for diarrhea, but it's more fun than diarrhea. Disaster pants is more fun. Um, so we have a lot of fun talking about that, but people so frequently, like the kiddo with the hurt tummy, that's where it often is going to show up when we're out of regulation. So if you want a teen to be able to, or a kiddo to be able to respond, um and really kind of understand what a healthy relationship with food looks like, ventral is a great place to land. And it is unrealistic to think that we can spend all day in ventral. We can't, because life is going to life. And so then the question becomes, okay, let's take a look just a little bit at our other options here. So we're going to go back to too much energy, sympathetic. We are going to, not even we, our nervous system, outside our conscious control, is going to prioritize immediate survival, right? And so that, what that means, it really depends on the person. I would love to say, oh, everybody with sympathetic as their home away from home eat more than, feels comfortable. Everybody with dorsal eats too little. That's not how it goes. We can generally say that people who spend more time in sympathetic, they're going to be reactive. They are going to do what I did yesterday and grab quick foods. I remember so clearly the day that my son was diagnosed with a chronic illness, like an ongoing chronic illness that really requires a lot of work on our part. I remember sending my husband to the grocery store and saying, like, just get all the carbs. Just get all the carbs, because that was the only coping tool I had that day. And so we are going to be reactive around food. We are going to be responsive to food, and it is a protective and adaptive response. I really want everybody to chew on that a little bit, no pun intended. Whether we eat too little or too much, like sometimes our society really has a tendency to applaud eating too little and demonize eating too much. They're both adaptive responses of somebody who's trying to cope with what's in front of them. And I really don't believe that we should have any moral judgment on either. like it is just an adaptive response. It is an adaptive response that can become maladaptive over time. But in the moment, that is somebody's nervous system seeking safety. And the nervous system's number one most important nutrient is safety. Okay, let's talk about dorsal. This one is a little harder for me because this is not my home away from home. And so when I am talking to clients, it takes a little bit more for me to kind of identify with this. This is absolutely energy conservation mode. I do frequently see low appetite, but I do see low appetite also in sympathetic. But I also see, I don't even want to call it motivation. I think I did a bad job choosing that word. There's just no energy in the tank. Like there's no gas in the tank to prepare food. It is just, right? It is shut down. And with people like this, like I have a 16-year-old that I will see in 2.5 hours, who I've been seeing for a while. There is a lot of chaos in her household, and she does not have an eating disorder. We do not have a DSM-5 diagnosis here, but every time her dad raises his voice in relation to eating times, she loses her hunger, can't eat. And it sincerely, I promise you, it is not an eating disorder. It's a trauma response that she's got. And so what we have done is figured out, okay, that is your nervous system's response, right? Can we notice and name it? Can we be aware of it when it happens? Oh, there it is again, having a little freeze. Could we then find an approach that'll help us re-engage with food when it feels safe, right? So she goes to her room, she plays with her rabbit, which is freaking adorable. And she feels safer, and then she knows that her safe foods, not making this up, apple juice and beef jerky. Why? I don't know. Never been able to get that out of her, but here we are, right? And so I say that because when your teen is not, or your kiddo is not spending a lot of time in ventral, when they're spending a lot of time in a protective survival state, we do sometimes need to think about how we shift food. And it is sometimes a very different response than it would be otherwise. Let me give you one other, I'm going to give you an adult example, but this does relate to the kiddos. I go into my own little dorsal shutdown moment the first 3 weeks of January, because in nutrition world, those are the busiest weeks of the year. And generally speaking, everybody that comes in as a new client the first 3 weeks of January wants an immediate quick fix, like, let's erase all of these behaviors that I have. And they're in a very struggle bus place. um, that can happen when we are in a survival state, right? We try and do something, even something that would benefit us, and we just cannot get there. We just cannot get there because we don't have choice.
Quick
So,
question, quick
yeah,
question.
yeah,
So when the teen who had the trauma response and
yeah,
not losing their appetite,
yeah.
did they come to you because they were concerned that she had disordered eating, or how did they? I'm just wondering how they came to what they came to you for help for.
Yeah, they came for the anxiety actually. So it is not commonly understood, but nutrition can impact anxiety, depression, ADHD, bipolar, OCD. Like there are a ton of approaches that we can use for that. The reason they were familiar with using nutrition for that is because her older sister does have a DSM-5 diagnosed eating disorder. So they had been talking to older sister's nutrition provider, and she was like, yeah, go see somebody, and sent them my direction. So that's how they got to me. But we've really been trying to, find safety. This is actually a brilliant layup, Wendy. Thank you. We're just going to go into like, how do we find safety through nutrition and otherwise? So I'm sure you all are familiar with perception, right? You are perceiving me talking to you right now. Here we go. Neuroception is the nervous system's perception, the nervous system's scanning for threat or safety. So if you'd want an example of this, no, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. Do I reveal? No, I'm gonna wait. It's okay. So there's 3 ways that our nervous system scans for safety or danger. We scan inside the body, again, unconscious, without our control, inside the body, outside our body, and in between relationships. Okay. So in between relationships, I don't mean romantic relationships. I mean, right now, we are having an in between nervous system experience. Okay. Let's start with inside. This is the piece that I think people understand the most about nutrition. Meaning, if I have hypertension, if I have GERD, these are going to send danger signals to my nervous system, right? Um, Outside the body, this is the embarrassing one, but I'm going to say it because I want you to understand. Any factor outside the body can influence our perception of safety or danger. Fluorescent lights, cars honking. Cars honking really sends danger signals to my dog. The embarrassing one is last summer, for those of you who live in certain areas of the country, there were cicada broods that came out of the ground. And all of my neighbors found them charming, and they anxiously anticipated every single stage along the cicada journey. Um, in my neighborhood, they were plentiful. The trees looked like they had acne. There were so many of them. We tested the decibels at one point, and it was equivalent to a rock concert. Like it was loud, and these things would fly in your hair and fly into your car as you're in the car, as you're trying to close the door. They were everywhere. So that would be an example of something outside that could affect your nervous system. Of course, it could be living in an unsafe neighborhood. It could be, not having access to exercise. Outside could be anything, but that would be an example of outside. In between, I don't think I have to tell you about how much there can be nervous system activation in between relationships. I have a 17-year-old right now, and I swear some days I'm not even making a face. I don't think I'm making a face, but I like look at him and it just sends his nervous system into the stratosphere. And I am pretty sure I have fixed my face, but there is something about it that just is so triggering for him. So these are the ways that we sense safety and danger, inside, outside, and in between. And we're going to look at that a little bit more in just a second. All of these things influence our food behavior before conscious thought, right? I did not feel very hungry last summer because I was watching those dang cicadas, and I love to eat outside in the summer. And I didn't want to do that. But it doesn't even have to be that, serious. I don't know if you've ever had an argument with a loved one. You may not feel hungry, or you may be like, I said, go get all the carbs. Um, and these triggers shift us between these nervous system states. So in any given day, you probably experience all three states at some point, some flavor of all three states. And so when we think about making, when I work with clients and we talk about, okay, how can we make a nutrition goal? How can we really make sure you're nourished this week? How can we feed you? When my clients are in session, generally that is a very regulated nervous system. I try very hard to help them co-regulate and make sure that I am managing my own nervous system so that hopefully my nervous system can kind of entrain regulation on theirs. And so usually when we are making those decisions, when I'm with somebody, they are regulated. And then they go into their lives and life gets lifing. And they're no longer feeling safe and regulated 100% of the time. And all of a sudden, those initial goals that we had, they can't do them, or they look completely different. So again, back to the January New Year's resolutions, this is why so many people make these New Year's resolutions and they're like, I will do all of these things. Speaking from a place of what is going to be ideal, thinking that they're going to have capacity, thinking that their nervous system is going to be regulated. And then we get into life and like, that's just not how it shows up. Oh, the nervous system. So why does this matter? The more time that we can spend in ventral, the more people can be intentional about their food. And again, that doesn't mean not eating sweet treats. That means having the choice to say, hey, how do I want to show up today? What would be a way to fuel me that will allow me to show up in that way? And we need to align our strategies with the person's nervous system state. So with every client, I make two plans. I make a plan for when they're not in regulation, and then I make a plan for when they are feeling regulated, and they're totally different plans. So going back to inside, these are all the things that as a provider, I'm really curious about. Hormones, especially for the teenagers, woo! Like think about how dysregulating fluctuating hormones are for teenagers. I mean, I'm feeling a decent amount of dysregulation as I enter perimenopause. Not entering perimenopause, I'm all the way in it. But hormones play a huge role in dysregulating or regulating our nervous systems. Digestion, as I mentioned, hunger. if you've ever had a kid who is hungry, who feels hanguished, or who has anxiety, right? Like anger, depression, anxiety, uh, hungry, absolutely. Our blood glucose, our microbiome in the gut, even inflammation, all of this stuff influences our food behaviors. Outside social media, where is the place to eat? I think a lot. I've actually been really curious. One of my hobbies, this is embarrassing, I'm going to tell you anyway. One of my hobbies is logging into realtor.com and looking at floor plans of houses. I'm just slightly obsessed with the floor plans of houses. But do you know how many living spaces don't actually have a place to eat anymore? And I don't say that in judgment because like I ate dinner on the couch last night. I'm not saying that in judgment. I'm just saying like we are not providing places to eat for people in housing anymore, but also sensory cues and food access and all these things, food ads contribute to those outside cues. And then in between, oh my gosh, the friends' comments that can influence how a teen eats. Oh man, I just wish I could like just be there in that moment. It is so hard, the social pressure and the conflict and the attachment. We are right now in the food holidays, like we are in it to win it. The last quarter of the year, it's all about the food holidays. There's a lot of them. And so frequently, when we get together with family and friends, these teens are hyper aware that somebody is going to comment on their food, somebody is going to comment on their body. It happens all the time. And so, like, this in between relationship can also lead us to safety or danger and affect our food. So, if we have a neuroception of safety, we're able to choose our foods, we're able to follow through on our goals, and we're able to prioritize our long-term benefit. If we have a neuroception of threat, we are going to be reactive and responsive with food. It is going to be really hard to follow through on our goals. And our priority is short-term survival, not long-term benefit. Okay. So I hope this gives you a good understanding of, when you watch kids choose foods, um, why they may be making some choices, and certainly making some choices that you're like, you want to be up all night? It's 10 p.m. and you're drinking an energy drink. This is an interesting choice. When that happens, I think I would be really curious to notice and name, where is their nervous system? So one of the things that I really try and impress on the teens and their families is you don't have to eat the same way every day. When I'm working with people, we will make a survival state toolkit because it's not just one approach. We need a toolkit, right? We need to know that my client who goes to juice and beef jerky, we need to know that that is in the pantry. We need to make a grocery list and put it in the delivery app so we can just click it. We might have a list, like I have on my fridge, a list of foods that my 17-year-old can always make because he really hits decision fatigue. And when he gets decision fatigue, kiddo doesn't eat. And so if I have that list there, like we just need to assemble our toolkits, right? We're not always going to be there. Our entire job when we're in that state is to eat enough to get back into ventral, right? When we're in ventral, that's when we're like, great. Let's see if we can eat more vegetables. Let's see if we can get some fiber in there. Let's see if we can not drink an energy drink at 10 p.m. because you forgot the report that you have to do that's due tomorrow. But they're different approaches for different states. So one of the tools that I use a lot with clients is this concept of the dial. So I've given you here an example of somebody who wants to eat more vegetables. We could make this example be literally anything, literally anything. But for this purpose, we're just going to go with vegetables. The basic concept is when we're thinking about doing something differently, we want it to be a slight stretch on our nervous system, not a stress. Because as all those New Year's resolution people will tell you, if it's a stress, we ain't going to do it, and then we're going to feel guilty about it. So we need a stretch, not a stress. This is a Deb Dana, who's a polyvagal therapist. It's her phrase that I'm stealing. In between mild stretch and stress, there is a whole dial's worth of potential ways to go after something. So when I work with a teen, whatever we may be working on, whether it's eating well-balanced meals, whether it is, I wouldn't be working on this with them, but maybe I'm referring them to Leah, the provider in my office who does sports nutrition. Whatever the target is, we're trying to figure out from that place of having little energy to that place of having a lot of energy, like what does it look like so that no matter where your nervous system is, there's a way that we can show up for ourselves, right? Even if it's just, hey, today I am exhausted, I am really in a lot of dorsal freeze, but guess what? I have my pizza and salad pre-ordered on the app and I can just press that. So trying to get away from kind of judging and saying it always has to be perfect to having a variety of ways to get after that same goal, whatever it is. Okay, so I just gave you a heck of a lot of what or how. I'm going to stop for a second. Wendy, were there any other questions before we get to the what?
So just one question.
Mhm.
For somebody who has ARFID, which is a food restriction
Yeah.
in intake disorder, is there research that shows there any connection to that and trauma, or is there no link?
Between ARFID and trauma, there is links between every single type of eating disorder and trauma. Every single type. It is highly trauma mediated. And I think in this case, like the basic principles still apply. I'm not gonna trial an 8 out of 10 fear food with a client with ARFID on a day that they don't feel regulated. like that is not what we're gonna do. We're gonna start at a 2 and we're gonna work up. So I think the same thing applies here. I can't give you any statistics, but every single eating disorder has been shown to have a deep relationship with trauma. Sometimes it is trauma before the eating disorder as a predisposing factor. Sometimes, you know what, 50% of eating disorder etiology is genetic. So sometimes it is genes, and then the trauma comes with the experience of the eating disorder. So I don't want to always say that, eating disorders are caused by trauma, but I think it is a pretty ubiquitous experience somewhere in there for people going through it, for sure. Yeah. Anything else, Wendy?
No, not at this time.
Okay. So let's talk about the what for just a second, because I would be remiss if I didn't do this. It sounds deeply unsexy for me to sit here and say, please make sure the teens have 3 well-balanced meals per day. This is the absolute antithesis of just about everything you read online, because if you're seeing it online, they are trying to attract views, and it is to a certain extent marketing. That being said, it is the most important thing. And especially for teens, they are hard to get 3 well-balanced meals. It is hard. In my own house, I have a kid who is not hungry until 10 a.m. He is not hungry. I could serve him the thing that he wants most, and he'd be like, nope, don't want to eat it. I know a lot of teens have practices. They have, oh my gosh, it's just for about 5 years, uh, I worked almost exclusively with teens, and the amount of stuff that they had to do is insane. Nobody's getting well-balanced meals. That being said, it is a really good place to start because part of getting the nervous system to feel safe is getting it into predictable patterns. So even if we just think outside the box, so for my kid, his three well-balanced meals are noon, 3 p.m., and 6 p.m. And the 3 p.m., I'm not going to pretend that I cook. Like, I don't cook. He gets a lot of leftovers from the night before. He gets, things that I can throw together really quickly. But we try and get three well-balanced meals. So think outside the box on it if you need to. That's totally fine. That's number one. If we still have capacity, what we're going to want to lean toward is the anti-inflammatory nutrition support. The rationale for that is trauma comes with a lot of inflammation. When you look at the literature on what happens, especially to ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, so people that have experienced ACEs later, they are at risk for so many inflammatory diseases later, like so many. And because of that, one of the kind of key principles of trauma nutrition is, can we provide that anti-inflammatory support, which basically means, among other things, omega-3s in fish or seeds, or color in fruit and vegetables. And I know that's not always a super winning approach, like let's eat more fruits and vegetables. But I have always been so fascinated by how kids and teens will eat it if it's there. And there is some strategy around that I'm not going to go into now, but definitely if we can lean toward that, that would be great. If we can help them with the decision fatigue, I think that's really helpful. That one client that I was telling you about with the juice and the beef jerky, all she wants, this is so sweet. All she wants in her life is for her mom to make her a sandwich and put it in the fridge for after school. And I'm like, oh, because she just wants that care and tending. She's highly independent. She does all these things, but she just can't make a decision. School is so taxing that after school she just won't eat because it's too much to figure out. So her mom makes her a little plate, which I find adorable. And then the last thing is just really being aware of nervous system approaches, both of your kiddo and of the family, right? Because if my kiddo is feeling regulated, but I'm like, um, we're gonna do what I need to do for me, right? And we're gonna make sure that I get regulated because that's gonna help keep him regulated. So all of that to say, like, I really hope that you took out of this that the how is as important as the what, and that there are things that you can do without changing anything. Like, you don't need to feel like you have to change everything about how you eat. We don't need to have you go get super expensive ingredients and this and that. If we just bring you more moments of ventral regulation, you will digest your food better. You will get more out of it. You will absorb more nutrients from it. You will react less to it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I would be delighted to answer if I can.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Um, it's so interesting. And do you ever give like a list of recommended foods for particular challenges? Like say someone you mentioned, someone has ADHD or they have anxiety. Like
Yeah.
are there certain things that people should, I know eat a balanced diet, which is
Mhm.
hard with young people.
Yeah.
Um, but is there something like let's just give an example. Someone has ADHD.
Yeah.
Is there something they should avoid, or something that they should focus on
Yeah.
that would help?
So there are some people with ADHD that are reactive to certain compounds, like just using that as an example. Some people, my niece and nephew are very reactive to food coloring. It's a small percentage of the ADHD community. I think the last study I read, it was about 15% that might be a little bit reactive, but for those people, it does make a big deal. For ADHD specifically, like what we would focus on, I'm going to use a big word here, which is irritating, is oligoproanthocyanidins, OPCs. And that is, highly antioxidant compounds that are in cherries and blueberries and green tea and glycine and, anything that's kind of that deep purple, red coloring would really help kind of antioxidant status in ADHD. With other targets, like with depression, we're really looking more specifically. There's a lot of data on depression and polyphenols in general. So just, fruit and vegetable. So it really does depend on kind of the symptoms that you're experiencing. But yeah, there's a lot that you can do there.
And how would one in your field determine if someone has a food, not an allergy, but a sensitivity, like to dye and all, or whatever it may be?
Yeah.
Is there some kind of test, or do you just experiment, or?
Yeah, I prefer to experiment. There are some tests, they're not super reliable, so I
Okay.
wouldn't recommend people spend their money there. But an experiment, it does a couple things because sometimes people think they're sensitive to something, but what they actually have is a fear of it that's creating GI issues.
Mm.
A lot of people can come in and say, "Oh, I think I'm sensitive to gluten." And when you actually run the experiment, I always make people run it 3 times. Like, we're going to reintroduce something 3 times because the first time you're going to be anxious and you're going to get symptoms. And the second time you may be anxious and you may get symptoms, but usually by the third time you're not anxious. So if you actually get symptoms the third time, like now I'm really curious. Um, so it's a lot of experimentation to kind of take out that role of the nervous system in causing disaster pants. Um, it's challenging.
I remember that term last year that you used.
It's a good one.
It's a good one. You
Yeah.
have so many good terms. Um, well, thank you so much. In the chat, I put for folks just a short survey. It takes about a minute. It helps us make sure that we're hitting the mark. And we would appreciate it so much if you took a moment to do that. Secondly, if you want to follow some good social media that is inspiring and helpful and will give you access to all of our free resources and more, please follow No Shame on You on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. And thank you for joining us. And Meg, thank you. Thank you. I love your approach. I love your storytelling. And it makes it just so meaningful and real and
Well, thank
accessible.
you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
So I appreciate it. And I look forward to the book coming out.
Thanks.
All righty, take care, everyone. Have a great day.